Welcome to Exploration Dreamland, a quiet read aloud of the writings of explorers of the real world and the worlds of imagination. Drop anchor, relax into your comfortable bunk, and drift off to Dreamland with us as we read a lightly edited version of The Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish from 1666, considered to be the first science fiction book written by a woman. It's a fascinating glimpse into the ideas of science and philosophy at that time. The book will be read in order, so if you would like to begin at the beginning, please start with Season 5, Episode 87. If you would like to stay in touch between episodes, you can follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, or Facebook at Exploration Dreamland. If you have a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, it helps more than you know. You can also hear our episodes on YouTube. If you are listening there, please like our episodes and leave a comment for us. We love hearing from you. Now, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, relax any tension in your muscles. Close your eyes, snuggle into your sleeping space, and listen to tonight's tale. In time of the voyage, both the Empress's and the Duchess's soul were very gay and merry, and sometimes they would converse very seriously with each other. Amongst the rest of their discourses, the Duchess said she wondered much at one thing, which was that since Her Majesty had found out a passage out of the blazing world into the world that she came from, she did not enrich that part of the world where she was born, at least her own family, though she had enough to enrich the whole world. The Empress's soul answered that she loved her native country and her own family as well as any creature could do, and that this was the reason why she would not enrich them. For, said she, not only particular families or nations, but all the world, their natures are such that much gold and great store of riches makes them mad, insomuch as they endeavor to destroy each other for gold or riches' sake. The reason thereof is, said the Duchess, that they have too little gold and riches, which makes them so eager to have it. No, replied the Empress's soul, their particular covetousness is beyond all the wealth of the richest world, and the more riches they have, the more covetous they are, for their covetousness is infinite. But, said she, I would there could a passage be found out of the blazing world into the world whence you came, and I would willingly give you as much riches as you desired. The Duchess's soul gave Her Majesty humble thanks for her great favor, and told her that she was not covetous, nor desired any more wealth than what her lord and husband had before the civil wars. Neither, said she, should I desire it for my own, but my lord's posterity's sake. Well, said the Empress, I'll command my fishmen to use all their skill and industry to find out a passage into that world which your lord and husband is in. I do verily believe, answered the Duchess, that there will be no passage found into that world. But if there were any, I should not petition your Majesty for gold and jewels, but only for the elixir that grows in the midst of the golden sands, for to preserve life and health. But without a passage it is impossible to carry away any of it. For whatsoever is material cannot travel like immaterial beings, such as souls and spirits are. Neither do souls require any such thing that might revive them or prolong their lives, by reason they are unalterable. For were souls like bodies, then my soul might have had the benefit of that natural elixir that grows in your blazing world. I wish earnestly, said the Empress, that a passage might be found, and then both your lord and yourself should neither want wealth nor long life. Nay, I love you so well that I would make you as great and powerful a monarchess as I am of the blazing world. The Duchess's soul humbly thanked Her Majesty, and told her that she acknowledged and esteemed her love beyond all things that are in nature. After this discourse, they had many other conferences, which for brevity's sake I'll forbear to rehearse. At last, after several questions which the Empress's soul asked the Duchess, she desired to know the reason why she did take such delight, when she was joined to her body, in being singular both in accoutrement, behaviour, and discourse. The Duchess's soul answered, she confessed that it was extravagant, and beyond what was usual and ordinary, but her ambition being such that she would not be like others in anything if it were possible. I endeavour, said she, to be as singular as I can, for it argues but a mean nature to imitate others, and though I do not love to be imitated, if I can possibly avoid it, yet rather than imitate others, I should choose to be imitated by others, for my nature is such that I had rather appear worse in singularity than better in the mode. If you were not a great lady, replied the Empress, you would never pass in the world for a wise lady, for the world would say, your singularities are vanities. The Duchess's soul answered, she did not at all regard the censure of this or any other age concerning vanities, but, said she, neither this present nor any of the future ages can or will truly say that I am not virtuous and chaste. For I am confident all that were or are acquainted with me, and all the servants which ever I had, will or can upon their oaths declare my actions no otherwise than virtuous. And certainly there's none even of the meanest degree which have not their spies and witnesses, much more those of the nobler sort, which seldom or never are without attendance, so that their faults, if they have any, will easily be known, and as easily be divulged. Wherefore, happy are those natures that are honest, virtuous, and noble, not only happy to themselves, but happy to their families. But, said the Empress, if you glory so much in your honesty and virtue, how comes it that you plead for dishonest and wicked persons in your writings? The Duchess answered, it was only to show her wit, not her nature. At last the Empress arrived into the blazing world, and coming to her imperial palace, you may sooner imagine than expect that I should express the joy which the Emperor had at her safe return. For he loved her beyond his soul, and there was no love lost, for the Empress equalled his affection with no less love to him. After the time of rejoicing with each other, the Duchess's soul begged leave to return to her noble lord, but the Emperor desired that before she departed, she would see how he had employed his time in the Empress's absence. For he had built stables and riding houses, and desired to have horses of manage, such as, according to the Empress's relation, the Duke of Newcastle had. The Emperor inquired of the Duchess the form and structure of her lord and husband's stables and riding house. The Duchess answered his Majesty that they were but plain and ordinary. But, said she, had my lord wealth, I am sure he would not spare it, in rendering his buildings as noble as could be made. Hereupon the Emperor showed the Duchess the stables he had built, which were most stately and magnificent. Among the rest, there was one double stable that held 100 horses on a side. The main building was of gold, lined with several sorts of precious materials. The roof was arched with agates. The sides of the walls were lined with carnelian. The floor was paved with amber. The mangers were mother of pearl. The pillars, as also the middle aisle or walk of the stables, were of crystal. The front and gate was of turquoise, most neatly cut and carved. The riding house was lined with sapphires, topazes, and the like. The floor was all of golden sand, so finely sifted that it was extremely soft, and not in the least hurtful to the horses' feet. And the door and frontispiece was of emeralds curiously carved. After the view of these glorious and magnificent buildings, which the Duchess's soul was much delighted withal, she resolved to take her leave. But the Emperor desired her to stay yet some short time more, for they both loved her company so well that they were unwilling to have her depart so soon. Several conferences and discourses passed between them. Amongst the rest, the Emperor desired her advice how to set up a theatre for plays. The Duchess confessed her ignorance in this art, telling his Majesty that she knew nothing of erecting theatres or scenes, but what she had by an immaterial observation when she was with the Empress's soul in the chief city of E, entering into one of their theatres, whereof the Empress could give as much account to his Majesty as herself. But both the Emperor and the Empress told the Duchess that she could give directions how to make plays. The Duchess answered that she had as little skill to form a play after the mode as she had to paint or make a scene for show. "But you have made plays," replied the Empress. "Yes," answered the Duchess, "I intended them for plays, but the wits of these present times condemned them as incapable of being represented or acted, because they were not made up according to the rules of art. Though I dare say that the descriptions are as good as any they have writ." The Emperor asked whether the property of plays were not to describe the several humours, actions, and fortunes of mankind. "'Tis so," answered the Duchess. "Why, then," replied the Emperor, "the natural humours, actions, and fortunes of mankind are not done by the rules of art." "But," said the Duchess, "it is the art and method of our wits to despise all descriptions of wit, humour, actions, and fortunes that are without such artificial rules." The Emperor asked, "Are those good plays that are made so methodically and artificially?" The Duchess answered, They were good according to the judgment of the age or mode of the nation, but not according to her judgment, for truly, said she, in my opinion, their plays will prove a nursery of whining lovers, and not an academy or school for wise, witty, noble, and well-behaved men. But I, replied the emperor, desire such a theatre as may make wise men, and will have such descriptions as are natural, not artificial. If your majesty be of that opinion, said the Duchess's soul, then my plays may be acted in your blazing world, when they cannot be acted in the blinking world of wit. And the next time I come to visit your majesty, I shall endeavor to order your majesty's theatre, to present such plays as my wit is capable to make. Then the Empress told the Duchess that she loved a foolish farce added to a wise play. The Duchess answered that no world in nature had fitter creatures for it than the blazing world. For, said she, the louse-men, the bird-men, the spider and fox-men, the ape-men and satyrs appear in a farce extraordinary pleasant. Hereupon both the Emperor and Empress entreated the Duchess's soul to stay so long with them till she had ordered her theatre, and made plays and farces fit for them, for they only wanted that sort of recreation. But the Duchess's soul begged their majesties to give her leave to go into her native world, for she longed to be with her dear lord and husband, promising that after a short time she would return again. Which being granted, though with much difficulty, she took her leave with all civility and respect, and so departed from their majesties. After the Duchess's return into her own body, she entertained her lord, when he was pleased to hear such kind of discourses, with foreign relations. But he was never displeased to hear of the Empress's kind commendations, and of the characters she was pleased to give of him to the Emperor. Amongst other relations, she told him all what had passed between the Empress and the several monarchs of that world whither she went with the Empress, and how she had subdued them to pay tribute and homage to the monarch of that nation or kingdom to which she owed both her birth and education. She also related to her lord what magnificent stables and riding-houses the Emperor had built, and what fine horses were in the blazing world, of several shapes and sizes, and how exact their shapes were in each sort, and of many various colors, and fine marks, as if they had been painted by art, with such coats or skins that they had a far greater gloss and smoothness than satin. And were there but a passage out of the blazing world into this, said she, you should not only have some of those horses, but such materials as the Emperor has, to build your stables and riding-houses withal, and so much gold that I should never repine at your noble and generous gifts. The Duke smilingly answered her that he was sorry there was no passage between those two worlds, but, said he, I have always found an obstruction to my good fortunes. One time the Duchess chanced to discourse with some of her acquaintance of the Empress of the blazing world, who asked her what pastimes and recreations her Majesty did most delight in. The Duchess answered that she spent most of her time in the study of natural causes and effects, which was her chief delight and pastime, and that she loved to discourse sometimes with the most learned persons of that world. And to please the Emperor and his nobles, who were all of the royal race, she went often abroad to take the air, but seldom in the daytime, always at night. If it might be called night, for, said she, the nights there are as light as days, by reason of the numerous blazing stars, which are very splendorous, only their light is whiter than the sun's light, and as the sun's light is hot, so their light is cool. Not so cool as our twinkling starlight, nor is their sunlight so hot as ours, but more rate. And that part of the blazing world where the Empress resides is always clear and never subject to any storms, tempests, fogs, or mists, but has only refreshing dews that nourish the earth. The air of it is sweet and temperate, and as I said before, as much light in the sun's absence as in its presence, which makes that time we call night more pleasant there than the day. And sometimes the Empress goes abroad by water in barges, sometimes by land in chariots, and sometimes on horseback. Her royal chariots are very glorious. The body is one entire green diamond. The 4 small pillars that bear up the top cover are 4 white diamonds cut in the form thereof. The top or roof of the chariot is one entire blue diamond, and at the 4 corners are great springs of rubies. The seat is made of cloth of gold, stuffed with ambergris beaten small. The chariot is drawn by 12 unicorns, whose trappings are all chains of pearl, and as for her barges, they are only of gold. Her guards of state, for she needs none for security, there being no rebels or enemies, consists of giants, but they seldom wait on their majesties abroad, because their extraordinary height and bigness does hinder their prospect. Her entertainment when she is upon the water is the music of the fish and birdmen, and by land are horse and foot matches, for the Empress takes much delight in making race matches with the Emperor and the nobility. Some races are between the fox and ape men, which sometimes the satyrs strive to outrun, and some are between the spider men and lice men. Also there are several flight matches between the several sorts of birdmen and the several sorts of flymen, and swimming matches between the several sorts of fishmen. The Emperor, Empress, and their nobles take also great delight to have collations, for in the blazing world there are most delicious fruits of all sorts, and some such as in this world were never seen nor tasted, for there are most tempting sorts of fruit. After their collations are ended, they dance, and if they be upon the water, they dance upon the water, there lying so many fishmen so close and thick together, as they can dance very evenly and easily upon their backs, and need not fear drowning. Their music, both vocal and instrumental, is according to their several places. Upon the water, it is of water instruments, as shells filled with water, and so moved by art, which is a very sweet and delightful harmony. And those dances which they dance upon the water are, for the most part, such as we in this world call swimming dances, where they do not lift up their feet high. In lawns or upon plains they have wind instruments, but much better than those in our world. And when they dance in the woods, they have horn instruments, which, although they are of a sort of wind instruments, yet they are of another fashion than the former. In their houses they have such instruments as are somewhat like our viols, violins, theorbos, lutes, citherns, guitars, harpsichords, and the like. but yet so far beyond them that the difference cannot well be expressed, and as their places of dancing and their music is different, so is their manner or way of dancing. In these and the like recreations, the emperor, empress, and the nobility pass their time. The Epilogue to the Reader. By this poetical description, you may perceive that my ambition is not only to be empress, but authoress of a whole world, and that the worlds I have made, both the blazing and the other philosophical world mentioned in the first part of this description, are framed and composed of the most pure, that is, the rational parts of matter, which are the parts of my mind, which creation was more easily and suddenly effected than the conquests of the two famous monarchs of the world, Alexander and Caesar. Neither have I made such disturbances, and caused so many dissolutions of particulars, otherwise named deaths, as they did. For I have destroyed but some few men in a little boat, which died through the extremity of cold, and that by the hand of justice, which was necessitated to punish their crime of stealing away a young and beauteous lady. And in the formation of those worlds I take more delight and glory than ever Alexander or Caesar did in conquering this terrestrial world. And though I have made my blazing world a peaceable world, allowing it but one religion, one language, and one government, yet could I make another world, as full of factions, divisions, and wars as this is of peace and tranquillity. And the rational figures of my mind might express as much courage to fight as Hector and Achilles had, and be as wise as Nestor, as eloquent as Ulysses, and be as beautiful as Helen. But I, esteeming peace before war, wit before policy, honesty before beauty, instead of the figures of Alexander, Caesar, Hector, Achilles, Nestor, Ulysses, Helen, etc., chose rather the figure of honest Margaret Newcastle, which now I would not change for all this terrestrial world. And if any should like the world I have made, and be willing to be my subjects, they may imagine themselves such, and they are such. I mean in their minds, fancies, or imaginations. But if they cannot endure to be subjects, they may create worlds of their own, and govern themselves as they please. But yet let them have a care not to prove unjust usurpers, and to rob me of mine. For concerning the philosophical world, I am empress of it myself. And as for the blazing world, it having an empress already, who rules it with great wisdom and conduct, which empress is my dear platonic friend, I shall never prove so unjust, treacherous, and unworthy to her as to disturb her government, much less to depose her from her imperial throne for the sake of any other, but rather choose to create another world for another friend. Finis. Thank you for joining us for The Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish. After a short break, we will resume with The Gradual Acceptance of the Copernican Theory of the Universe by Dorothy Stimson, Ph.D. Please follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast app. Keep in touch with us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and recommend us to anyone you know who could use a quiet break or a little help falling asleep. Exploration Dreamland is produced, edited, and hosted by me, Sarah Van Zaley. A big thank you to Project Gutenberg and LibriVox for helping me find many interesting publications. Thanks also to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for providing the theme music for this show. The title of this piece is Kalimba Relaxation Music, if you would like to visit his website to hear it in its entirety. Sweet dreams.